my dissonance started when I saw that AI could help us execute fast, and I saw that you could get to the market fast with some variations of your idea faster than usual. And then I thought to myself, well, if it's not execution, then what is it now that encourages me to speak about my idea? And you just reconcile that by saying that it's distribution. You just need to get out there and make it a fact for the world that you are there, that this is what you're doing, and to get people to use it as fast as possible. And I think I'm going to take it back to whatever advice I give to some clients who still approach me every now and again.
And we're back for another episode of the Startup Hustle. This is your host, Matt Watson. Very excited today to be joined by Nimrod Vromen, who's in Israel. I don't know if I've ever had somebody on the show from Israel, which is great. He is the author of Prompting Happiness. We'll talk about his book today about the future generative AI and how it could affect all sorts of different things. He's got a couple different generative AI companies. He's also been a lawyer for a lot of startups, entrepreneurs for the last 15 years. So really excited to get some advice from him about lawyers and startups. And I love you, Nimrod, but lawyers are the last people I ever want to talk to. But I'm happy to talk to you today.
Well, my company Arc is supposed to hopefully, you'll be able to just chat with Arc. So and it'll give
replace the lawyer.
Well, it's a great question. Lawyers, if they're defined by time, let's say a law firm is defined by 400,000 hours a year, they will definitely cause it to be defined as 50,000 hours a year. So I don't know if it binarily replaces lawyers, but it definitely replaced 350,000 hours in my example. So that's still good. That's good news for you.
Well, if you need some help doing software development, I do want to remind everybody before we get started, check out my company, fullscale.io. We have 308 employees as of today in the Philippines, working for dozens of different startups doing software development. For less than half the cost that you can normally hire somebody in the U.S. or probably Israel and a lot of other places. You can hire very talented people. There are smart people all over the world, including Nimrod. So I'm excited to ask you about your book, but before we get started on that, I would love if you could give us some of your expertise of, I guess, first of all, dealing with other entrepreneurs on their legal issues. And when I talk to other entrepreneurs, a lot of them are so worried about all the legal stuff. They're like, well, before I do this, I need to patent it. I need to get a copyright. I need to get a trademark. I need to do all these things. They have zero customers. They have no revenue. They want to spend a bunch of money on legal. They want to protect their idea. Where do you start with those people? What are your advice to them? And you don't work at a law firm anymore, right? So you don't have a vested interest in this anymore. What is the real answer?
Yeah, I would like to think that I would have given a similar answer when I was a lawyer as well, and I'll give you a way to also validate that and check me on the net. Here's an interesting thing. Lawyers do like to incorporate analogies when they give answers to fields that are more important than law, like physics or medicine. So I'll answer by referring to the only things I know about physics. So there's Newtonian physics and there's quantum physics. So most companies in the world, like 95 or 98% of companies in the world, operate within the Newtonian rules of business, which is make more money than what you spend and then distribute some of it to your shareholders. But startups, i.e., the companies from the idea stage to the point where actually customers are paying them for their product, hopefully more so than they're spending, so that they can actually make decisions about how to use their profits and how to make bigger moves, whether with outside financing or with their own profits. Up until that point, those startups are in the realm of quantum physics. And to me, even as a lawyer, they are a lot like Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger's cat being that entity that is both dead and alive at exactly the same time. And what I experience with entrepreneurs is that, Schrodinger says you've got the hat over the cat. It's reporting back that it's dead and alive, a wave and a particle. If you lift that hat, that cat's going to be dead. And that means that you've killed the cat. So the entrepreneurs that I've worked with, they're in a psychotic state. They're supposed to hold the hat down, tell the entire world that they're building $1 billion business, but they're the only ones who get to peek under the hat and see that it is essentially dead. It's going to run out of money and die. And when they spend time protecting this cat from things that exist in the realm of Newtonian business laws, i.e., some massive corporation that's going to sue you for a trademark breach, or somebody who's going to actually see that you breached some privacy rules because your very first user was a privacy troll. Very unlikely when your first users are your friends, family, and colleagues, right? They go into this whirlwind of protecting from a world that they're not even in. So there are many, many, many methods to not go into that, to skip those stages. And when you speak with lawyers who you pay for, there's an incentive to sell you some service. But actually, I think what you want to do is ask experienced entrepreneurs like you what they did to get past that point, because they certainly didn't spend all their money on legal, on accounting. They did something else. And now that I'm not a lawyer, this is something I wouldn't say as a lawyer. Maybe you copied your terms of service from a competitor just for the first
Heck yeah, we did.
just for your pilot, just for the first 3 months, and change the bloody font. But but when you actually impacted the public, then you cared about privacy laws and you changed it, and you made it fit. Maybe you realized that you are protected by trademark if you're actually famous, so you can work your way to get there. And it's most likely, unless you're literally copying a giant, it's most likely that they won't come back to sue you. Moreover, it's most likely that you're going to change your company's name and brand at one point, and it won't even stay the same name and brand for its entire duration. That's also very rare.
Well, people are always worried about their idea and somebody copying their idea, and people famously always say, "Oh, well, the execution is more important than the idea," which is right, but also sort of wrong. Actually, what's the most important is distribution. You can have the best idea in the world, but if nobody knows that you exist, nobody knows your product exists, you don't know how to sell it, you don't know how to market it, it doesn't matter anyways. And so the to me, I feel like the biggest mistake most founders make is that they don't tell anybody. They're so scared that they don't tell anyone. Worst case scenario, they could have told a few people who might talk to somebody else like, "Oh yeah, I could use that thing. Introduce me to that person. I want to learn more." Instead, they're telling nobody. So the odds of their success actually go way down because they're scared to death to tell anybody about what they're trying to do.
Well, actually, you reconciled something for me now when you said that I've been thinking about for a while, since I started using AI for the last couple of years. Because when I was encouraging entrepreneurs to talk about their idea, like you just said, and that person's not going to copy you, that person's not going to copy you. You know what? If I was a bit in a risk averse mood, and they said, "Hey, we're engaging Matt. Matt runs a company that does development all over the world, and he might want to do some angel investing in our company. He sold his previous company." I would say, oh, maybe Matt needs to sign an NDA because maybe Matt can execute. And but then I tell him, look, Matt's not going to change everything just because your idea was good. He sees probably about 1,000 startups a year. He's not going to get out of bed for that. He's going to get out of bed for his own thing. So just get out there. But then what my dissonance started when I saw that AI could help us execute fast, and I saw that you could get to the market fast with some variations of your idea faster than usual. And then I thought to myself, well, if it's not execution, then what is it now that encourages me to speak about my idea? And you just reconcile that by saying that it's distribution. You just need to get out there and make it a fact for the world that you are there, that this is what you're doing, and to get people to use it as fast as possible. And yeah, I think I'm going to take it back to whatever advice I give to some clients who still approach me every now and again. Well, thank you.
Well, the other part of this, people want to get a patent on their idea. And I always tell them, I'm like, okay, that's great. You got a patent. Somebody violates your patent. Do you have like
What
$1
do you
million to go sue them? Because
Yeah.
if you don't have the $1 million to go sue them and the time to do that, what difference does it make?
Yep. People are operating. They operate in business based on some history, right? Patents are like Edison screwing over Bell and vice versa over
Yeah.
something that really generates money from the moment that it's patented. Patents are pharmaceutical companies suing each other over a patent on a pharmaceutical that actually makes money. Patents are Samsung and Apple basically balancing it out, one winning in the East, one winning in the West. But then they're not really for your little startup company. Unless it's a deep tech company and the somehow builds your valuation for deep tech investors who might see some angle there. If it's a software-based company, if it's in the realms of, there's a spark in there and your patent attorney says it's patentable, but really it's not the thing that, that is tangible, that is deep tech, it's probably worthwhile to just get it out there. Yeah,
Well, and the thing with software is you can basically copy the idea, but just do it slightly different, and it doesn't matter anyways, right?
that's right. That's
So
right.
it really comes down to patenting a specific algorithm or something, but it's they could just create a similar algorithm that's slightly different, and whatever, it's different.
Agreed.
So what advice do you have then? Like, so somebody wants to start a company, should what legal steps should they do first?
So I'm gonna like the worlds of tax are different in different jurisdictions. For me, is to ensure from the greatest risk that startups have in the early going, and that is, I don't know, maybe I'll just ask you one quick question because I checked, but was your company, the previous company, was that a single founder company or were there a few founders there?
So I've had four different companies. Three of them had more than one founder. One of them was just solo founder. And I would say all three of them that I had business partners in had struggles with the business partners for one reason or another.
Okay, so
Some
basically,
of them had legal battles with.
wow. Yeah, so basically, I I I lobbed it to you, and you lobbed it back to me, and I can now answer. In my experience, about 35 to 45% of my more than one founder, my multiple founder companies, clients experienced founder stress to the point of what is called a lost founder and then dead equity, i.e., a founder no longer working in the company who holds all of their equity and investors complaining about that and trying to create, some legal play to reduce that person's equity, which many times then devolved into minority oppression lawsuits, etc. And was just ugly and really hurt the company's life cycle. If you're thinking about the very first thing that you want to do and you really want to focus on, it's the corporate prenup, it's the founders agreement. And I have some advice that is, I do think it's relatively not. I wouldn't say it's that novel, but I don't think all lawyers advise this when they work with founders. So there's a thing called, which I'm sure you know, it's reverse vesting, which means
Yeah.
that the founders commit to, they get all their shares at once, but they will earn their shares over time. And if they leave or are terminated or something happens to them, then there's like a linear track back on the shares that they got.
Yep.
So let's say you got 30% of a company, and the vesting period is 3 years. For founders, for employees, it's almost always 4 years, but for founders, sometimes it's 3 years and not four, whatever. Let's say it's 3 years and the founder left after 18 months. So they get 15%, and the other 15% is either taken away by the company or distributed to the other founders. Here's the kicker, okay? Template reverse vesting agreements are prepared as between founders and investors who come in. That's where they are spawned from, investors who asked founders to recommit to reverse vesting. And when founders work with investors, they say, well, wait a second, what if the company terminates me without cause? I should be accelerated. I shouldn't be punished because this company is now the other founders and the investors. Or what if I left because the investors on the board and the other founders reduced my salary? That wasn't the pact that I had with the company. I left for a good reason. I should get all my shares. And those are agreements that, you can negotiate them with investors. But when you're doing a reverse vesting agreement among your co-founders, the people who are supposed to be with the highest level of trust, the right thing for the company, maybe not for any one of the founders, is to not have any triggers for acceleration on vesting. If somebody leaves, they lose the shares they haven't earned. If somebody's let go because the other two let them go for any reason whatsoever, including the fact that they might not like their haircut, they should lose their equity that they didn't earn. They are no longer required to take the risk of working on that startup. The only difference I sometimes put in the contract or advise them to put in the contract is that if the two let the one go, or if the majority let the one go, they accelerate 3 more months of vesting just to make them think twice about that big play. But when you do that, the agreement suddenly enables a clear cut to a moment that cannot really take or cannot sustain an elongated legal battle. By the time they get to that point where they're thinking about breaking up, they have broken up.
Well, there's a lot of startups that fail, a lot of companies that fail because of all these sort of issues, like disagreements about things, or you get into a business with somebody and then you realize like I don't like being their business partner. I'm just gonna close this thing down and go start another company and start over or whatever. Like all these different reasons. And one thing I've said a few times on the podcast is it's easier to get a divorce, at least in the United States. I don't know about Israel, at least in the United States. It's easier to get a divorce than it is to get rid of a business partner. Like, it's really hard. Like, I owned Full Scale with my business partner 50-50, and I bought him out a few months ago. But if we got into a fight, like, what do? We own this thing 50-50. How do we get out of this thing, right? And I think most business operating agreements need some way to accomplish that. And it's a common problem. My very first company I had some we had some issues with one of the founders and got into a bunch of fights with him and whatever. Eventually bought them out and all these problems and drama, and this is stuff just happens. It happens a lot. I think there's a lot of companies that fail because of it.
Yep. Failure is startup companies. They have like different angles of hockey stick growth in their valuation. Even companies that survived and somehow succeeded, you don't know where they would have been had they had a cleaner cut. This thing can really hinder the company's growth. Be ready to just let go. I represented, my best friend had a startup company. That was my first client at the firm. He sold his company within 3 years to Yahoo. I'm still very proud of it. It's one of the things that caused me to stay in law for 16 years was that my first client was such a great success, and he was a good friend. After he sold his company to Yahoo, he was invited to an event. The event was very exclusive for just Globe's 30 under 30 at the time, like this magazine, 30 Promising Founders Under 30. And the person in the event in this hotel was a legendary CEO of Cisco. I think his name is John or Tom Chambers. And I think it's John Chambers. And this guy's 82. Warren Buffett admires this CEO, and Bill Gates admires this CEO. All of them look up to this person, this Chambers guy from Cisco. And my client is my best friend, so he invites me. I'm basically the only lawyer in the room. I'm his plus one. All the rest invited their co-founders, but I'm this guy's plus one. So I get to eavesdrop. And it's a fireside chat, and every one of the 10 founders invited get to ask John Chambers a question, and he answers. And that's it. It's like an oracle level moment for young founders. And one of the founders asks him a question that the answer was just great. I loved it. The question was, as a manager, what is the one trait that you think you have never, peaked at, and that you haven't, and that you see as a deficit in all managers that you've seen? Like the one trait that managers should always aspire to improve at, because they're not at peak level on that one across the board. And he answers immediately, like he has to not even think about this. He says, there's one trait, and I'm far from being as good as I want at it, but I practice it every day, which is to let go of your employees and your executives when you need to let go of them, and not to procrastinate, and to understand that even people who excelled in one role may have not grown into the shoes that they should have grown into when the company changed phase, and you should have let them go then, without giving them too much grace for the period in which they did excel. Now, it doesn't mean to terminate people aggressively like a you're fired sort of thing on the day at will, but it means that your mindset has to be about whether or not the people that are there are the right people, and to be clear on when they need to be let go. Yeah. So it's the same for founders. In fact, it's more so for founders, because founders, until proven otherwise, and now that I'm a founder, I can say this. If I was a lawyer saying this, I'd be mauled. Founders are overcompensated executives. They get the overcompensation, one iota of overcompensation of equity for the idea, but the rest is for prospective execution and distribution of that idea. I just added distribution thanks to you, right? So if you're a CEO, if you're hired, you're going to get 4 to 5% in an A-funded company. If you're a founder CEO, you're holding 33. What's the other 28%? Is that for just coming up with the idea to do a smarter matchmaking app, something to compete with Tinder? No, it's for the next 3 to 10 years that you're going to do everything that's needed, including to take out the bloody trash in order to make this thing succeed.
Operate
Yeah.
this thing. Operating partner.
Yep.
That's the thing is investors, like we don't want to run the business. Like, we want to invest in 100 companies. We need 100 smart people to run them. And they got to be motivated.
That's
Got to
right.
keep them motivated.
Yep.
Well, I want to take a second to remind everybody today's episode is brought to you by Fullscale. Check us out at fullscale.io if you need help building software. So I'd love to change topics a little bit and tell us some more about your book. And when does your book come out, or is it already out?
It's out on Amazon.
Okay.
It's called Prompting Happiness. It's also on the Barnes and Noble online site. So that I'm proud of
Okay.
that. Yeah.
So tell us what the book is about and what inspired you to write the book.
So the book is in one line. The subtitle is A Guide to Prompting a Life Worth Living. But really, it's about the future of the pursuit of happiness in the age of AI. And then what inspired me to write it, or what triggered me to write it, is that I'm 42, and around the age of 40, people experience what is coined as a midlife crisis. In reality, I think that it is an introspective period where you sort of like think about where you thought you would be at this age when you were 18 and where you actually are, and you identify disparity and discrepancies in some areas. Like in the hair, I thought I might have more hair. But really, you thought you'd be a certain place. You're doing something else. You're looking at all the things that aren't exactly where your dreams were at, and you're trying to basically devise a plan for the next part of your life. You want to just live better, and now you also have kids, so you feel like you need to do that for your kids. I have two daughters, 10 and 6, at that age. And I'm experiencing this period after being a corporate lawyer for 15 years, knowing full well that I wanted to be an entrepreneur for many of them, and a lot of the stress from not having made that change just translates into the book. And when I'm thinking about how I'm going to be happy in the future, I suddenly have this epiphany, which in the book is called an Adam moment, and I can explain why in a moment. And the epiphany is, wait a second. If I had this midlife crisis just 2010, okay, I'll just think about what I need to do next. But if I'm having it now, as of October 2022, and I'm not trying to also predict what the world is going to look like when AI does so much more for us, because this thing is coming fast, then the lessons learned from the first 40 years of my life are useless. It's like somebody saying in 1999, I should be in touch with my friends more. I should write them a letter every week or every month and send it to them by mail. Completely the imminent existence of the internet and email. So this thing is going to just change everything. And the book ends with an adapted theory for happiness. After it basically journals my midlife journey or introspective period.
Well, how do you think the world's going to change with AI? We talked before about how it could affect our happiness and what we do in life and disrupt our society in a lot of ways.
So there are 6 parts to the book. Part A is a framework of thought. Part B about our purpose in life as humans. Part B is a journal of my first conversations with GPT and commentary on those conversations, different types of conversations. Part C is prophecies. It's called leaning into foolishness because in Israel it's highly spoken or let's say frequently spoken statement that prophecies for the fools. I don't know if it's as used in the U.S., but we say that a lot. So this part is called leaning into foolishness, and there's a lot of prophecies about the business world, and I'll get into that in a moment. About then about humanity's North Star. Where is humanity's North Star in the age of AI, which is just a big assumption there. So, in my opinion, in the business world, and when I say business world, I mean the realm of immediately monetizable innovation. What you would have called, or I would have called SaaS, cyber solutions, social networks, cloud solutions in the last 10 years. What is going to be immediately monetizable in the next 10 years when there's AI out there, and what fields? Fields that VCs didn't invest in the last 10 years. And I predict it's going to be six fields that are relating to the subjective human experience, and one field that is relating to something else. And I call it the seven kingdoms of immediate innovation. And those are physical pastime, digital pastime, food, i.e., food tech, culinary enjoyment, but also food in the sense of cultivated meats and cultivated and lab grown products. Spirituality, I think people are going to reconnect a little bit. No matter how scientific you are, when you're dealing with this thing, you can't really not think about subconsciousness and different beings, because you're suddenly speaking with something that almost passes the Turing test. So spirituality, and sometimes, by the way, acts like a deity, like answers you that something is what it says and argues with you, even though it's wrong because its data set is limited to a certain date. It's funny to hear that. So spirituality, anything that combats loneliness. So the flip side of that is community. So said sex, because I don't think AI is going to do our sex for us. But so a lot of technology around that. That's the six subjective parts, and the seventh one is education. So historically, we inherited the education system from the Industrial Revolution. It's basically a glorified babysitter of our children, 9 to 5, but thanks to Henry Ford. But we fed it with a lot of substance, but today it's sort of like crumbling at the seams. And if you're a parent, parents will complain about the education system not being up to par and not preparing children, as it should for their adulthood. In reality, the time's up. In a world of AI, of generative AI, it has to change from the core. Like, we can't ask ourselves whether the kids can do their homework, the students can do their homework with or without LLMs. That means we're well behind where we should be. Like, the whole system has to change. And I think it might actually have to go on for a bit longer, but that's a completely different conversation. So those are the immediate worlds of innovation. The next part is, where do we moonshot as a humanity? So if we invested $100 million in climate change and space in the last 10 years or 15 years, I'm thinking we're investing 100 million now in space again, because SpaceX and some other privatized companies took us there, and in life expectancy. Life expectancy, because even if AI is going to kill all of us, which is a whole different discussion, the n-1 moment is bliss. Like, the second before it kills us, it's beautiful. There's a lot of nice things going on. It's doing a lot of nice things for us. So life expectancy and space. North Star is my last point. Where are we going? So pretty much ever since the agricultural revolution, we're going for expansion and growth. And I'm going to do this for the geeks. We're going for more paper clips ever since the agricultural revolution, if you're familiar with the paperclip challenge. So that's that. But now, if we just continue to iterate with a machine that does everything and tell it to grow, that's what it'll do. So there was like this test where they fed one of the first AIs a challenge to manufacture more paper clips. So it made one paperclip factory more efficient. They iterated with it, so it bought a couple of paperclip factories, made them more efficient. Iterated with it, said more paperclips. So it started like thinking about how it could get more land and more resources to prepare more paperclips. At the end of the iterations, it basically harvested human blood for its metal. Prepared paperclips, was the only entity left, and was surrounded by paperclips. So if we insert our growth mindset alone into a machine that can theoretically produce when it connects to robots, it doesn't lead anywhere interesting. So what we need to probably do is like shift course by about 1 degree or 2 degrees, and let it run its course to growth a little bit in support of us, but also focus a little bit more on interconnectivity, conversations, connecting with each other. I'm seeing a lot more podcasts, mentoring, the sort of stuff that you do with the time that is freed up by your efficiency, right? So that's
But
going to see a lot more of that.
so it's starting to feel like to me though, when people talk about climate change being the biggest risk to our world, and right now I don't think it's that. It's actually the fact that we're not having kids. Like population decline is actually one of our biggest risks. Now, maybe climate change kills all of us and it doesn't matter, but that's a different thing. But population decline is a huge problem, right? And are the increases of productivity and potentially robots and other things actually going to have to save us because we're simply not going to have the population to actually do the things that we even need to do?
I think before they, decide to randomly destroy us, yes, I think they're going to save us. But I
Before
think,
they harvest our blood for
yeah,
paper
for-
clips.
exactly. I think yes, they're going to help us. But here's the thing, and this is I think this one's big, and for me, this one drives me nuts. I think this revolution, this technological revolution, is as big as the atom bomb, and I think that every technological revolution in between,
But definitely the military.
in the military, yeah. No, no, no. But
100%, right?
I'm not even talking about as a weapon. I'm talking about
Okay.
as a mindset. Like, let's say computers, internet, mobile phones. All of them do something that humans were doing anyway: increasing productivity, increasing interconnectivity among humans. That humans were anyway on that path. These revolutions accelerated it. Day before the atom bomb, August 5th, 1945, you are living in a world inhabited by several billion beings who cannot destroy it in one day. August 6th, 1945, you are living in a world with a couple billion human beings who can destroy it in one day. Welcome to a new world. AI. Day before AI, you are living in a world aspiring for interconnectivity with as many humans as possible. In the world of globalization, you're working with so many employees in the Philippines. That's what you do. You have a ceiling of 8 billion entities to connect with. Day after GPT-4s, let's not say GPT-3, you currently have infinite digital beings to connect with and don't have to connect with the other 8 billion at all. So if you go back and sleep with them and reproduce with them, yes, we're growing. But if you only spend time with the GPT, it doesn't matter how much it helps us. It's gonna basically Pied Piper us to our death because we're still gonna go bust if we don't reproduce. So yes, we have to like force ourselves to reconnect with humans.
Well, and it seems like a lot of guys have AI girlfriends now. That's a whole different problem.
Oh yeah, I got just before I left. Just before I left the firm, clients joined me, like all these clients with avatars. You can speak with them. Let me tell you, I have to say, they're willing to talk to me about things that my wife won't. So it's interesting.
It is. It's a fascinating world. I mean, kind of along those lines, you mentioned, well, how will AI impact sex? Well, I think it is in regards to that and relationships and different things. It's a whole different problem. Like, but you've seen the movie The Matrix, right?
Yeah, of
And
course.
you're like, hey, I need to figure out how to fly this helicopter, and all of a sudden you jack in, and you're like, "Brrr," I just downloaded how to fly the helicopter. It
Yeah.
kind of feels like that's what AI is for us now, right? Like, what do you want to know how to do? It could help you do almost anything, which in the future could be flying the helicopter. Too bad we can't actually like get it into our brain though.
You know something it can do immediately to help us, which I don't know if you use it for, but I do. In Israel, we live there's it's a multicultural land. There are a lot of tourists here. There's a lot of American venture capitalists here. I work in English all the time. You get into a cab in Israel, 20% of the Israelis are Muslim Arabs who speak Arabic. And also in the 90s, when the Soviet Union fell apart, we had an immigration of 1 million Russians who speak predominantly Russian. We also had an immigration of 200,000 Ethiopians. So there have been a variety of lackluster translation apps that you could use when you're traveling in
Yeah.
France. But what I do with GPT, with the speaking capabilities in a cab, I can speak in I can convey messages in Arabic, I can convey messages in Russian. It's already empowering us with speech, almost like an alien species that, speaks telepathically with humans when it just lands on Earth, which is quite insane. And that's before the yes, it can teach you to do this, this, and that, and will enable you to experience much more of the world. I think it will cause us to yearn for experiences with other humans. They will be the rare event. And I think I hope we don't grow away from that because already our teenagers and our children, their conversation is a little bit diluted by emojis, by
Yeah.
and I'm not being a boomer here. I'm just saying that it is already being simplified.
Yep.
It is being abbreviated. And if it's being abbreviated, they're gonna just go to the machine, and it's gonna be more and more difficult to converse with each other. So I just hope that we reconnect as communities. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. If we don't, then I can learn how to fly a helicopter and just fly around.
Well, so when you think into the future in your book, how do you see AI impacting everybody's day to day and happiness? Like, what do you see as project like the final outcome of this is?
So the AI, in terms of helping us, I think, yeah, it just does a lot of things for us that enables us to just live. But when we do live, and this is the message from the book, when we're with ourselves and we are taking care of our body, our vessel, we still haven't copy pasted it into the cloud and live through there. So our body, when we take care of our relationships, which are according to a 75-year study on happiness by Harvard, are the most important external factor to happiness. When we retain our positive approach and optimism, and when we approach making money and collecting resources in order to live our lives and grow, in those four aspects and many other aspects in life, AI is helping us, but we are also with ourselves. And when we are with ourselves, what I hope, and this is the message from the book, I hope that we remember to prompt ourselves to as we go about these things as thoroughly as we prompt generative AI for its best results. Because when we want a great result from generative AI, we have to go through a long series of prompts to get it to do what we want to do better than what we could have done it. And then the magic comes out. Then the magic churns out. When we go about taking care of our body and our soul, I hope that we give ourselves detailed instructions on how to do so. And the book ends with really like a list of self prompts to relationship management, to body management, to positive approach, and to money making. And there's a war here, and the positive approach thing was stress tested in this war. Trust me. Like staying optimistic in the face of what we've been dealing with in this region the last 10 months. That has validated my theory. It's worked. And I'll just give you one example for a prompt that I give myself to stay positive in the face of adversity. It's called the prompt is reverse engineer for best intentions, and that is a situation where I feel like something negative was done to me from an external factor. It doesn't come from inside. I'm not sick or anything. Somebody did something. Somebody screwed with me on the business level, or offended me, or something like that. I just I just run a prompt on myself to reverse engineer that person's actions from effect to cause to effect to cause to effect to cause until I identify their best intentions. Like they didn't wake up to hurt me that day. Some chain of events happened until they did. I don't want to say this. It's not a pacifistic statement. It doesn't mean that I'll respond differently to what they did to me. I may have to respond, to counteract but what it does is it improves your mental disposition. You're happier when you know that, a certain person isn't out there to get only you. They're just going through something. It doesn't change what you do with them. You still have to respond sometimes, but you don't feel like all the evil and the cruelty of the world are directed at you. So you're
Well,
not happier.
I mean, one thing I heard for sure one day that's always stuck with me is a lot of times the way that people interact with you and treat you isn't about what you did. It's about how they're feeling, right? Like they're being a jerk to you because they're not happy with themselves. It's not necessarily that you deserve to be treated that way. It's more reflect on how they feel and problems that they have.
Yeah. So I do like a thorough play in my mind of why exactly they got to that point, understanding that yes, they did not wake up that morning saying, "Hey, I'm going to be the James Bond villain in Nimrod's world today and ruin his
Yeah.
day." No, that's not how they woke up. Something happened, and yeah, and then that helps you stay calm. Again, you might still have to counteract, or react, but then you're doing it calmly and happily. You're not worried. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate having you on the show today, talking
Thank you.
about some of the common issues with startups, problems with founders, founder equity, all that kind of stuff. I think is really important. Your book sounds really cool. Prompting Happiness, as you mentioned, you can get it on Amazon and other places. Some of it is kind of deep, dark thinking, maybe about the future of where the world goes. I like it. It's been a great conversation. Is there anything else people should know about you, or ways they can work with you?
Thank you so much for just for the opportunity and for the chat. I really had fun. You can also go to promptinghappiness.com, and that is, you can't get the book there, only on Amazon, but promptinghappiness.com is built as a community where people can add their own prompts to happiness on the website. So it's slowly becoming a repository of prompts that others can get on the site and be inspired by. So if you want to go there and add your own, that would be nice as reading the book, if not more, because you'd be contributing to the community as a whole. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, once again, this is Nimrod Vromen. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you so much for joining me on a evening in Israel. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Cheers. Thank you.
Take care.